Greetings from the beautiful province of British Columbia. My name is Anton Sestritsen, and today Forum TV is reporting from the Federal Conservative Party convention in Vancouver.
The Magnitsky Act is a very focused and highly appropriate, we believe, piece of legislation. We believe that it is the only effective way to counter Putin's territorial ambitions. We don't believe that dialogue is nearly as effective.
In a regime like Putin's Russia, I have a sense that they may someday in the future be held accountable for what they do. And initiatives like this instill that idea in the back of the mind of some of these bad actors that when, not if, when if Putin is no longer in power, they may be held accountable for their actions. That can govern and mitigate their future actions. This is not just about retrospective accountability, it's about trying to prevent future crimes of this nature.
Despite what the Liberals have said, is that they have the powers to sanction and take action against those human rights abusers and corrupt foreign officials in Russia, Ukraine, and elsewhere. Got to remember that first and foremost, they can only do that if they have a motion from either the United Nations, NATO, or the OSCE for that matter. Right now, on the situation in Russia, there's no motion. There is for aggression in Ukraine, but there isn't about, the corrupt activities, the fraudulent activities, the illegal means, the mafiosa style that Russian officials have been using against their own people. So this act sanctions at the will of the Canadian government. So it empowers the government of Canada to actually take action when these things happen. But I also brought in parliamentary processes to review the list, to update the list, to suggest names and take it off.
Anybody who's a member of the Canada-Ukraine Parliamentary Friendship Group, and it's all party, should be going to their leaders supporting this act, ensuring that it gets unanimous passage through the House of Commons, and that's what I would encourage my friends currently sitting in the House of Commons to do, and those included on the Canada-Ukraine Parliamentary Friendship Group.
What we're seeing from not just Dion, but from his parliamentary secretary and from Trudeau himself, is that this is all about appeasing the Russians. Whenever they want to talk about having talks and being able to negotiate with the Russians, it's all about appeasing Putin. And it's unfortunate, because if you really want to empower the people of Russia, you'd support the Magnitsky Act and stop the corrupt officials within the Russian kleptocracy and those human rights abusers.
Vladimir Putin is an authoritarian who is a destabilizing force in global politics. This is a leader who has been supportive of vicious dictatorial regimes like that of Bashar al-Assad in Syria. And so the liberal policy of so-called re-engagement actually gives Putin the kind of credibility that he craves. The Harper policy was centered around a notion of isolating Vladimir Putin on the global stage. And let me be blunt about this. In the West, in the democratic West and in Europe, there's obviously going to be a spectrum of views about how to deal with a challenge like Putin's aggression. It's very useful in that spectrum to have some countries like Canada taking a very hard line against Russian aggression. That is the role that Stephen Harper played, and it perhaps gave some license to leaders like Chancellor Merkel to be more forward-leaning in relations with Moscow and Putin. So if you have countries like Canada that were the anchor of resistance, the core of the policy of isolation towards Putin, weakening themselves before Putin, this changes the character of the entire Western alignment against his neo-aggression. So I think this is really the wrong policy for Canada to take.
The Liberals aren't united behind Mr. Dion on this. They see the flaws in his argument, I believe, and in fact have spoken out challenging his decision. We believe that Minister Dion's excuse that because of the Arctic Council and our shared interests in the north is not an excuse to look away from Ukraine and to look away from application of the Magnitsky Act.
Putin reads weakness and thrives on it. The only way to deal with a thug is through firmness, resilience, and strength. And that applies to the Arctic, as it does to Ukraine, as it does to the Baltic states. Canada will not diminish Russian aggressiveness in terms of Arctic sovereignty by sitting around with a professional liar like Foreign Minister Lavrov.
As we go into the Warsaw Summit for NATO, that there's going to be incredible pressure to take more action in Ukraine. And I hope that they follow through on supplying all means necessary to the government of Ukraine, to the Ukrainian military, to push back Russia.
На самому відкритті конференції, коли тимчасовий провідник партії Рона Емброуз відкрила конференцію своєю промовою, вона якраз поминула принципову позицію консервативного уряду відносно Росії як одна з найголовніших здобуть попереднього уряду. Для нас, як українська громада, це було надзвичайно приємно почути і побачити перед всіма делегатами з цілої держави. Конгрес українців Канади був представлений формально. Відділ Британської Колумбії тут мав кіоск, і постійно протягом цілої конференції були волонтери, які там стояли і роздавали інформацію, говорили з людьми про Україну, про українську громаду, про українські справи. І це якраз такі речі ми мусимо більше робити. Ми мусимо розвивати наші стосунки не лише з консервативною партією, але з всіма партіями.